you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know, as we're talking college football on this channel year-round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. But in addition to the Aaron Torres pod, we do a college football betting podcast each and every week during the season. During the season, we preview games. During July and August, we do team-by-team over-under win total previews and predictions. At this point, we've done virtually everybody in the SEC, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Tennessee, on and on. Most of the Big Ten, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Nebraska, even did Notre Dame. Today, though, it is the USC Trojans, year 4 of the Lincoln Riley era, and there's a lot to break down. I think with USC, listen, we do have to talk a little bit about last year. What a weird year, right? Because you have the high of year 1 where you nearly make the 4-team college football playoff, Year 2 is kind of a train wreck. Year 3 opens. I don't think anybody knows what to expect. Caleb Williams is gone. You're opening against LSU in Vegas. What chance do you have? Oh, I don't know. You just go out and beat LSU. You win that game. Listen, I could still picture Lincoln Riley with the fist pump walking out of Allegiant Stadium. You're happy. Some people don't feel this way, but I was happy for him. You feel like maybe, just maybe, all the negativity around him is gone. Week 2, they beat Utah State. You think, okay, they're going to be just fine. Then the real season began. They lose on the road at Michigan, defending national champs. No real shame in that. But even at that point, Michigan had gotten destroyed by Texas. So you're kind of like, okay, what does that mean? Then from there, the wheels kind of fell off. You come back home, you beat Wisconsin. You go back on the road, lose to Minnesota. You come back home, you lose to Penn State. Now, in hindsight, that loss isn't that bad, but you were up 20-6 at half and completely blew the lead. You lose the following week at Maryland, You fall to overall 3-4. Now, you did beat Rutgers, but by the way, the Rutgers game was right around it was the same night as game 1 of the World Series, Dodgers-Yankees. So nobody in LA was even paying attention. So you get back to 4-4. You lose the next game at Washington. You finally make the quarterback change. Jaden Mayava comes in, to his credit, beats Nebraska, beats UCLA. You do lose to Notre Dame to end the regular season, but I'll say this, a little bit of positive vibes beating Texas A&M in that Las Vegas Bowl. The season comes full circle. You beat an SEC team in Vegas to start the season. You beat an SEC team to end the season in Vegas. But even then, it was just kind of a strange time, because by that point, remember, Miller Moss had not only transferred out, but Zachariah Branch was gone. Deuce Robinson was gone. The one thing I'll say, though, the dudes that were in Vegas were locked in on that program, which brings us to this season. So let's go ahead and jump in. Listen, as far as the offense is concerned, the offense just has to be better, right? Lincoln Riley, we know his history. We know his track record. We know it hasn't been good enough. Now, we're going to get to the running back room in a second. His best Oklahoma teams really were great at running the football. That has not been the case at USC, but it certainly helps that I think he has a quarterback that is probably a little bit more suited to do what he wants to do, and that is Jaden Mayava, okay? So Jaden Mayava, as you can see on the screen, took over final 4 games of the regular season. He did, to his credit, win 3 of those 4. He beats Nebraska. He beats UCLA. Did lose to Notre Dame, but a lot of teams lost to Notre Dame, and then you beat Texas A&M in the bowl game. Nice dual threat guy, 11 passing TDs, 4 rushing TDs. I think the big thing is not super accurate in the games that we saw him. Did, though, to his credit, win 3 of 4 games. And now the question becomes, does he have enough around him? I think the other thing, too, he's got to be good in big spots, because that was kind of what undid Miller Moss. A lot of bad interceptions, bad turnovers at the worst possible time. But listen, Lincoln Riley believes in him. Jaden Mayava is the guy. In terms of the other players that you need to know, running back, as you can see on the screen right now, Wayman Jordan Jr., JUCO National Player of the Year, 1,600 yards and 20 rushing touchdowns. Should mention, by the way, we are recording this right as fall camp kicks off in early August. So all this stuff is always subject to change. We're praying there's no injuries. We're praying there's no issues. But I always like to give that caveat. If you watch this on August 14th or August 28th, Stuff could change, but that is what you need to know about the running back room. By the way, should mention, speaking of the running back room, Brian Jackson had a great game against Texas A&M in the Las Vegas Bowl. He should take on a bigger role. And then I'll say this, I think everybody focuses on the fact that you did lose Zachariah Branch in the transfer portal. He was kind of an afterthought by the end of the year. Jacoby Lane, as you can see, 43 catches, 12 touchdowns a season ago, 525 yards receiving, Las Vegas Bowl MVP. And that is in addition to the performance that Mekhi Lemon had a season ago, where he was also fantastic, 52 catches, 764 yards, 3 touchdowns. Lake McCree, the tight end, 24 catches for a deep, deep, deep wide receiver group. I think the big question for me on offense, what to make of an O-line, which does return some guys, but they also lost a couple guys over the course of the offseason. That O-line, again, it seems to be, to me, that's the biggest difference between Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley at USC, the consistency of the line play. For USC to reach its potential, the O-line needs to be good. Let's get to the defense. Before we do, context matters. Okay, so last year coming into the season, we know they lost Caleb Williams, but what was the big story? The big story was what cost Caleb Williams the year after he won the Heisman. It was Alex Grinch's defense, okay? And so that's important because, listen, the defense statistically was not the greatest defense in the history of college football, but compared to what it was a year before, significantly improved. In 2023, 121st nationally in scoring defense. Last year, down to 56th. 56th isn't great, but compared to 121st, it's much better. 119th in yards per game allowed in 2023, down to 77th last year, and the rush defense was down to 53rd. So again, USC fans are used to Pete Carroll, are used to Ed Orgeron as the D-line coach. I understand what the standard was at USC, but from where it was 2 years ago under Alex Grinch to where it was last year under D'Anton Lynn, much improved. Now the question is, can it improve even further? In terms of the names you need to know on this defense, a couple names stand out. I think the most interesting one, you can see it on that screen, Jakeem Stewart, former 5-star. This is a fascinating story, okay? So he was the number 1 player in the class of 2026, excuse me. He skips his senior year of high school, which was supposed to be this coming fall, like fall of 2025. Didn't play last year, okay? So he hasn't played football in 2 years, but he was deemed to be one of the top defensive players in all of high school football throughout his career. We will see what kind of impact that he can have, but he was a highly touted player and a player that I think, frankly, on an inexperienced D-line is going to need to play right away. Other names to know, Braylon Shelby, 5 TFLs and 3 sacks a season ago. Cameron Fountain, 4.5 TFLs, 2 sacks. Anthony Lucas, remember, a former 5-star part of that famed Texas A&M 2022 class. He is going into his 4th year of college football, 3rd at USC after transferring. Only played in 7 games last year. The other new name to know on that defensive line, Keyshawn Silver, former 5-star, began his career at UNC, played last year at Kentucky, 24 tackles a season ago. Linebacker room, this is where it gets interesting. Not a ton of depth, but they kind of play, kind of a hybrid, like, 4-2-5. The linebacker, the key is Eric Gentry. Was hurt for most of last year, was great 2 years ago, 6.5 TFLs, 2 sacks this past year. Desmond Stevens stepped up last year as a freshman. The secondary is where I would argue is the strength of this team. Kamari Ramsey, really the only key player off of last year's defense that returns. All Big Ten honorable mention, 60 tackles, 43 solo tackles, 5.5 TFLs, 2 sacks, 5 PBUs. Remember, he came with D'Anton Lynn from UCLA 2 off seasons ago and was a key part of that revamped defense. Also, DJ Harvey, a transfer from San Jose State. We'll see about the jump from the Mountain West to the Big Ten, but 58 tackles, 7 TFLs, 2 sacks, 10 PBUs, and 4 INTs a year ago. couple other names to know: Marcellus Williams, Prophet Brown, and an interesting one, RJ Sermons was the number one rated corner in the class of 2026, another player who reclassified, who is part of the team right now. All right. A lot of information. Now let's get to the schedule. Schedule, it's going to define what this season is for USC and if Lincoln Riley does what he needs to do to keep people happy. Let's look at this schedule. I'll say this. You kind of got to win some games, Lincoln Riley. Listen, I think Lincoln Riley gets a bum rap about a lot of stuff, but we know he's been very vocal about canceling big time out of conference games. Cancel the Ole Miss game. There were reports that he tried to cancel the LSU season opener a year ago. He said all the right things at Big Ten Media Day, but has also been vocal about, hey, if we don't play Notre Dame, it's no skin off my back. Well, look at this schedule. First three games: Missouri State, Georgia Southern, who, unless something's changed, I believe that's Clay Helton's team, so that'll be interesting. Clay Helton coming back to the Coliseum. Purdue on the road, and then Michigan State at home. I'm sorry, Lincoln Riley, you got to start 4-0. I know you struggle flying cross country. You cannot lose to Purdue in Barry Odom's first year. You just can't. And I mean, obviously that's duh. It goes without saying. You got to be 4-0. I think the first super intriguing game, week 5 at Illinois. Illinois, we were recording right after the coaches poll came out, is number 12 in the coaches poll. I think they're a little bit overrated, if I'm being honest. That is a game I think USC is capable of winning. Michigan is the intriguing one. And I think really, to me, this 3-game stretch in mid to late October into November is going to define the season. And it's also kind of interesting. 2 bye weeks over about a 4-week stretch. So you play Illinois, bye. You then host Michigan. You travel to Notre Dame. You get your second bye before you travel to Nebraska. So those 3 games I think are going to define the season. Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. I don't know what the win total has to be if you got to go 2-1 in those, but that is going to define the season. 2 East Coast trips. 2 years ago, the season kind of started to fall apart when you went to Notre Dame. Well, you play them again this year going into a bye. Then you got to go to Nebraska in November. You better have the run game figured out by then, because I don't think you're throwing the ball all over the field. I'd say a manageable backstretch, but Iowa's always tough. And then you got to go to Oregon second to last week of the season before you host UCLA. Producer Matt, let's get to the over-under win total here. According to DraftKings Sportsbook at 7.5. I'll be transparent. Lincoln Riley, you better win 7. You better hit the over on that 7.5. And now let me say this. Let me defend Lincoln Riley a little bit. Listen, I don't think he's John Madden. I don't think, he's whatever. He clearly inherited a good situation at Oklahoma, okay? But at the same time, he is a sharp offensive mind. In his defense, he has hired a great defensive staff. And in his defense as well, went out, got the GM this offseason, and recruiting is starting to pick up going forward. Now, what does that mean for this season? That remains to be seen. But I don't think he's forgotten to coach. And I do think it's worth noting, of their 6 losses last year, 5 were by a touchdown or less, including a 3-point overtime loss to Penn State, which obviously made a deep run in the college football playoff. A 3-point loss at Michigan, in which you had the lead in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. A Miller Moss pick 6 doesn't help. Miller Moss picks multiple, red zone drives against Washington. You can't close it out. They weren't that far from being like a 8-win team a year ago. And again, by the way, you went 2-0 against the SEC. You beat LSU. You beat A&M in Vegas. And so, 1, you better hit the over of 7.5. But 2, this is going to be one of my official best bets. I am going to take the over of 7.5 for USC. I don't think they're 11-1. I don't think they're in the college football playoff. But you look at that schedule, again, I think a 4-0 start is easily in the cards. And I think beyond that, again, Illinois, is Illinois unbeatable all of a sudden? I'm sorry. I know they have Luke Altmaier, but they've also lost a lot off that defense from a season ago. Michigan has to travel cross country. Is Bryce Underwood the starter at that point? Remains to be seen. Notre Dame's going to be tough. Notre Dame's a good team. Nebraska is going to be tough in that cold weather. Iowa coming across country. We'll see what they are by that time of year. And obviously, game at Autzen Stadium is tough. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think Lincoln Riley is this bad. The defense was rapidly improved a year ago. And again, you lose 5 games by a touchdown or less. I think things can change. And the one thing I will say, you got to win on the road. Last year, they played 5 road games. They go 0-4. They go 1-4, excuse me. The only win was against UCLA at the Rose Bowl. So basically, your only road win was 20 minutes from your campus. You got to go on the road and win. Again, last year, you lose a heartbreaker to Maryland. You lose a heartbreaker to Minnesota. You lose, a couple other games when you fly cross country. You have got to go on the road and win. I think Purdue is winnable. I think Nebraska is winnable. I think Illinois is winnable. You got to go ahead and do it. All right, I think that's it for this episode of College Football Betting with Aaron Torres. We truly do appreciate your support. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, subscribe. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button, please. Click the subscribe button. We're over 1,000 subscribers. I think we can get to 2,000 before the start of the college football season. All for this show. That's it for today. We'll be back. I don't know who we're going to do next. Do we do Oregon? Do we go to the Big 12? Do we go to the ACC? We still got a lot of previews to hit before we start college football season. Appreciate your support. This is another episode of College Football Betting.